the thing that makes the most sense to me was some type of hijacking.
The world of aviation is a world where impossibilities are constantly being made possible. Every flight seemingly defies the laws of gravity. In fact, some aircrafts, like the Bell X-1 or the Concorde, are even capable of breaking the sound barrier. Yet, not every flight is a smooth ride, and one trip aboard the skies in particular stands out above all others in aviation. It was a plane which vanished without a trace shortly after midnight on March 8, 2014.
Good night, Malaysia 370 were the last words heard from anyone on that flight. And at the same time, the plane disappeared from radar screens.
Imagine that. A 777 transporting 239 people, suddenly gone in a moment's notice. A single baffling situation, which would stun the world at large and devastate countless families in the process. No warning signs, no definitive explanations, and no closure.
I mean, the ocean's carrying a lot of secrets.
Oh, it is. It's incredible that, this long on, we still don't know where they are.
What was supposed to be a routine red-eye instead became one of the 21st century's most bizarre anomalies ever. So what happened? This is WatchMojo. Today we unravel the 12-year-long mystery of the missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. We'll discuss details about the troubled trip, as well as the timeline of the plane's disappearance. Then we'll see how the subsequent searches, investigations, and media frenzy landed this tragedy into the history books and capitulated Malaysia Airlines into infamy.
They keep asking why you are looking at the wrong place. As far as we are concerned, we are equally puzzled as well.
Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, also referred to as MH370, took place aboard a Boeing 777 airplane. More specifically, it was on a 777-200ER.
That aircraft is actually the pinnacle of all the aircraft that I have flown, and the automation is just fantastic.
Each and every airplane is designated a special aircraft registration code. These are also known as tail numbers. And for MH370, its tail number was 9M-MRO. In terms of itinerary, the plane was scheduled to go from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to Beijing, China. The 777 had a crew of 12 professionals and 227 passengers on board.
It was a routine for us to send each other a text message when the plane landed. We've been doing that throughout our flying career.
Of the 227, 153 of them were Chinese. Though the majority of passengers were Chinese citizens, a multitude of other nationalities were represented amidst the total group. For example, there were also citizens from India, France, Ukraine, Indonesia, Russia, and Iran on the plane, not to mention New Zealand, Canada, the Netherlands, the United States, Taiwan, and Malaysia as well. The plane was flown by Captain Zaharie Ahmad Shah, a seasoned pilot with about 18,000 hours of flight experience under his belt, and who had been working for Malaysia Airlines since 1981.
A friend of his, Peter Chong, told me today the captain is considered a tech geek who invited other friends to play with it.
His passion and talent for aviation extended beyond his professional career and well into his personal life too, with him even uploading flying-centric tutorials onto YouTube. The tutorials in question were performed on a special flight simulator program Captain Shah had.
Zaharie was a veteran, experienced guy who would know all the angles, who'd be able to conceive of something as complicated as this.
But beyond the realm of simulations, Shah was joined on MH370 by his co-pilot Farik Abdul Hamid. While Captain Shah was a veteran pilot, Mr. Hamid was more of a rookie. He was only 20 years old when he started working for Malaysia Airlines in the year 2007. While he had roughly 2,700 hours of flying experience under his belt, he actually didn't spend too much time with 777s.
He's clocked 2,700 hours of flying, and Malaysian Airlines says they were shocked when pictures surfaced of the co-pilot posing with young ladies in the cockpit during a flight, which, of course, is a security violation.
In fact, MH370 was only the 6th time Mr. Hamid had been at the helm of one. Plus, it was the first flight where he was officially considered a full-fledged pilot, with no more training required. Unfortunately for Mr. Hamid, this monumental flight wouldn't be remembered as his symbolic graduation of the class. It would instead become a nightmare, not just for him either, but also for Captain Shah, as well as everybody else on the plane. 239 people, many from different nationalities and walks of life, and many who were complete strangers, were all united by one tragic commonality. They never arrived at their destination.
Either through a missile strike or a mid-air collision, MH370 met its fate.
MH370 left Kuala Lumpur International Airport at approximately 12:41 a.m. Malaysian Standard Time on March 8, 2014. The plane was expected to land in Beijing Capital International Airport at approximately 6:30 a.m. The entire trip was meant to be a simple red-eye, which is a flight that operates during night and reaches its destination in the early stretches of the morning. Theoretically, MH370 should have been no different, and everything seemed normal at first.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
Roughly 47 minutes after taking off at 1:19, as MH370 was flying past the South China Sea, it received communication from Malaysian Air Traffic Control, or just ATC for short. Malaysia ATC told the plane that it should make contact with Vietnamese ATC. This was hardly anything out of the ordinary, since the 777 would soon be flying over Vietnam. Consistent communication between ATC and airplanes was crucial for any and all flights.
When we found out what was said from the cockpit of Malaysian Flight 370, it was perfectly routine, absolutely boilerplate. That's what airline pilots and flight controllers say to each other.
After these instructions, a voice from the cockpit of the 777 responded back to ATC. The voice said the phrase, "Good night, Malaysia 370. This was a simple way for the plane to acknowledge that it would shift communication from Malaysia ATC to Vietnamese ATC. It was widely believed that Captain Shah said the phrase. However, some initial speculation suggested it was Mr. Hamid who said the line.
As the plane approaches the limits of Malaysian airspace, the captain of the flight, Zaharie Ahmad Shah, gets on the radio and says,
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Regardless of which pilot was speaking, what remains true is that these were the last recorded words to ever come from Flight 370. At 1:21, just 2 minutes later, the plane went dark. To elaborate, the 777's transponder, a special device which sends messages to radar systems, became unresponsive.
Ho Chi Minh's control center tries to reach the aircraft.
They tried the radio. They tried to call and see if MH370 was out there. No response.
Transponders are vital components of an aircraft that ATCs rely on for accurately identifying planes. With MH370's transponder turned off, the plane was quite literally flying under the radar. While it was now practically invisible to ATC, the country of Malaysia itself was still able to see the aircraft. This was made possible through their special military radar system.
From the travel time of each signal, investigators also calculate the plane's distance from the satellite. These lines are called arcs.
It continued tracking the plane as it eventually traveled across the Andaman Sea, now notably far off course. But just like with ATC, the Malaysian military's radar would soon lose their connection to the plane as well.
It's the biggest breakthrough so far, instantly shifting the search 3,000 miles south of the last military radar contact.
59 minutes later, at 2:22 a.m., Flight 370 was no longer monitorable on the military radar at all. An initial search was then conducted using every form of communication with the plane possible to try and locate it. This included 2 phone calls from the ground station in Perth, Australia, directly to MH370, which were both unanswered. In addition to this, satellite data was a factor as well.
Boeing had included a maintenance reporting thing that goes by satellite. It was called an ACAR system, and Boeing had installed this system to report maintenance information about the engines in the airplane every hour.
Many planes were equipped with a SATCOM, short for a satellite communications system. It basically allows the cockpit to send messages over to a satellite data unit, or SDU. This is another part of an airplane that takes the messages from the SATCOM and sends it to a satellite. In this specific instance, MH370 had contact with an Inmarsat 3 F1 satellite. Its purpose was to relay the SDU data back down to the Perth ground station. Essentially, it's a middleman between the ground and the aircraft. The automated action where the plane sends signals to the satellite is called a handshake. Throughout the flight, multiple hourly handshakes were performed.
Many of these times where these satellites were flying over, they only fly over every once a day, going up, once a day going down, there were clouds there. They can't see through the clouds to see the debris.
Handshakes can be helpful for trying to pinpoint the location of a plane. And while several were made well after the transponder went down, they too eventually stopped. 6:30 a.m. was when Flight 370 was supposed to land in Beijing, but evidently this didn't happen. Multiple ATC bases were in contact with one another, and at 6:32 a.m., the Kuala Lumpur Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center became part of the search operation. With every minute that the plane's arrival was delayed, more confusion and panic about where it was spread.
I was told that flight MH370 is missing from our system.
Then, at 7:24 a.m., Malaysia Airlines made their first public announcement about the incident, revealing on Facebook that MH370 had officially disappeared.
We are working with authorities who have activated the search and rescue team to locate the aircraft. Our team is currently calling the next of kin of passengers and crew.
After the very first rudimentary search to find the plane, it became clear that a much more extensive search would need to be underway in order to find the aircraft. On March 9th, one day after the 777's disappearance, the Royal Malaysian Air Force provided some further updates. By combing through records from the Malaysian military radar, they theorized that MH370 turned around at some point.
Adding to that, the early conflicting reports on where authorities think the plane actually is, and whether it had turned or not.
This would actually explain why the military radar spotted the 777 flying over the Andaman Sea, somewhere it wasn't planned to be, before it lost contact. The radius of the search was extended, which meant that the Strait of Malacca, a body of water which connects the Andaman Sea to the South China Sea, was now also being looked at.
One last hope remained. Could they find the black boxes before they stop emitting pings?
You're not in an ivory tower. You haven't got the luxury of time. You've got pingers that may expire.
On March 10th, it was now a certainty that the plane indeed turned back. Evidence for the detour was supported by the plane's last known successful handshake. The handshake suggested that the plane crashed somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean, likely killing all on board. The reason it crashed into the water was also believed to be because the aircraft eventually ran out of fuel. The search continued on for months and only grew larger. At the height of the search, 26 countries were involved, and the operation became the most expensive one the world of aviation ever saw.
Even if you can detect the sound of a black box pinger, locating its origin is a huge challenge, especially an ocean 4.5 kilometers deep.
July 30th, 2015, already more than a year after the disappearance, debris in the form of a suitcase was spotted on Reunion Island. The day prior, there was some litter found, which was also speculated to be debris.
Hours after discovering the plane part, searchers stumbled upon what looks to be a tattered suitcase on the very same beach. Its connection to MH370 not confirmed.
Numerous forms of debris, in fact, including part of a wing fragment called a flaperon, were spotted around this time frame. It wasn't immediately clear that the debris was from Flight 370, but it was a breadcrumb nevertheless. After inspection, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak definitively confirmed on August 5th that the debris was from MH370.
It is with a very heavy heart that I must tell you that an international team of experts have conclusively confirmed that the aircraft debris found on Reunion Island is indeed from MH370.
Despite being a moment of progress, the search for the plane was far from over. On January 22, 2018, a salvage company known as Ocean Infinity began a deep-sea search for the plane. This underwater journey to find the aircraft lasted a few months and had no significant results. By June 9, 2018, Ocean Infinity's search ended, and with the end of that search, there was still no sign of Flight 370.
The AUVs are deployed around the clock, and 2 shifts of engineers and surveyors are constantly monitoring the missions and analyzing the captured data.
For the families of those on board MH370, their worst fears were confirmed by the Facebook post announcing that the plane had gone missing. Mothers lost their sons, husbands lost their wives, children lost their parents, and multiple nations lost their citizens.
Never in the history of human existence have 239 people been declared dead on the basis of mathematics alone.
None of this, however, went unnoticed. Through the years while the search was going on, coverage of the flight arguably took on a complete life of its own. Ever since the birth of the 24-hour news cycle, anomalies such as Flight 370 seemed arguably tailor-made for primetime coverage.
There was a deer in the headlights component to those early news conferences.
and you could almost see them struggling through it, not knowing what they were doing.
Major outlets like CNN, ABC, and other well-known news entities devoted lengthy amounts of time reporting about the plane. News broadcasts were necessary in order to keep the world up to date on the latest happenings. However, there was some criticism about how certain reports were handled. For example, arguments could be made that some news outlets leaned too much into sensationalism.
The way the plane spiraled into the ocean, it was not under human control.
There's no way that you can make a plane do that.
No, you would not. There is no way a pilot could make a plane do that.
CNN in particular gained a good deal of backlash around this time with their reports. Many criticized them and suggested their goal was to boost ratings rather than provide factual updates. At times when there was little to no information or breakthroughs, many theories about what happened on Flight 370 were talked about at length instead. Granted, there are some prominent theories that are understandably worth talking about, including some we'll also discuss. However, platforming the more out-there conspiracies can be incredibly dangerous and even disrespectful in the long run. Beyond the news circle, MH370's story also seemed to pull the world of entertainment into its orbit as well. Trade publications like Variety also discussed the plane. However, many of their articles focused on who was creating the latest documentary or miniseries about the aircraft.
As an aviation journalist, this is like the bat signal shined on the clouds. It has its hooks in me. And I had to investigate.
People also couldn't help but compare Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 with another plane, albeit a fictional one, Oceanic Airlines Flight 815, otherwise famously known as the plane from Lost, the critically acclaimed series about survivors of a plane crash who end up on a bizarre island concluded well before MH370 went missing.
Don't worry. It's gonna be over.
That being said, some fans of Lost became enamored by the Malaysia plane, and occasionally discussions were made in online fan circles. For some of them, it seemed like the mysterious nature of the 777 disappearing was a case of life imitating art. Besides comparisons to old shows, MH370 also had a direct impact on creating new ones. Manifest, a show about people on board Montego Air Flight 828, which mysteriously reappears 5 years after going missing, had trouble getting made at first. However, when the news about MH370 broke, it gave network executives the incentive to go forward with developing the show.
Problem, ladies and gentlemen, is your plane departed Montego Bay, Jamaica on April 7, 2013. Today is November 4th, 2018.
With all that said, whether it be from the news or the entertainment industry, what's clear is that MH370 wasn't just some small side story. It was the talk of the town, and still would be, for years.
You run so many scenarios through your brain. There's been so many theories, but they are somewhere.
Running parallel to the search for the plane was an extensive investigation into why things went wrong. For this, locating the black boxes was and still remains a massive priority to this day. Black boxes are recording devices that can provide crucial information in regards to what caused everything on MH370 to go wrong. However, they still have not been found. Multiple nations were involved in the search operations, and multiple also worked together on the investigations.
The aircraft bounced around 350 feet above the water, and the crew did their best, trying to pick out objects on the surface, but they didn't see much. A few fishing buoys and a pod of whales. But once again, there was no sign of MH370.
A joint investment team was put together by Malaysia, which included France, the United States, the United Kingdom, and China. It was a large team whose main goal consisted of investigating the plane's records, technology systems, recordings, and other noteworthy items. Since Australia was helping with search operations, their Maritime Safety Authority also worked in tandem with the joint investigation team, sharing important findings with them.
The search stretched on for a very long time. We'd been searching for over 2 years. But the longer we searched, the more certain we became that we would find it.
Malaysia's Royal Police also collaborated with international law enforcement like Interpol and the FBI. Like we mentioned earlier, there are some theories that are worth touching upon, for the sake of at least trying to attempt to figure out how something as bizarre as this could have happened. Among the most prominent theories is speculation that some form of sabotage was involved. Hijacking was discussed as one theory. Possible evidence for this came from two of the passengers who were on board the flight. They were 19-year-old Pura Noor Mohammed and 29-year-old Saeed Mohammed Rezar Delwar, and it was discovered that both had fake passports. These passports made it look like they were citizens of Austria and Italy, respectively.
Investigators focusing on this Thai travel agency that booked tickets for the two passengers.
However, they were actually both Iranian citizens. This led to suspicion and the theory that they boarded the aircraft with ill intent. That being said, this theory has been disproven. Interpol, the organization which was investigating the two, learned that they were fleeing Iran and seeking asylum. One other prominent theory relates to the pilot, Captain Zaharie Ahmad Shah. When we first mentioned him, we discussed how he enjoyed using a flight simulator. After the disappearance, that simulator was carefully looked over. While analyzing past flights performed on the program, the FBI noted that one had a path incredibly similar to how MH370 flew over the Indian Ocean. This, coupled with the idea that someone within the cockpit could have tampered with the flight, placed Captain Shah as a major suspect in the investigation.
Is it possible that he hijacked the plane and killed those people?
I absolutely don't agree with that.
Why?
I don't see him as a person who could do that.
There was soon chatter that he purposely took his own life and subsequently killed everyone else on board in the process. That being said, in regards to the simulation, the FBI ended their analysis of it by claiming that they ultimately found nothing criminally suspicious of it or with Captain Shah.
Somebody made this happen, and that somebody had to have sophisticated flying skills, probably for the 777. In other words, the suspicion falls on the two pilots.
However, the theory that he was responsible for the crash is still largely discussed and debated on to this day, with the family of Captain Shah denying the claims against him, and no official confirmation that it was him ever being announced. We ultimately have to stress that this still remains just a theory.
There's no proof, then you shouldn't assume someone did that. Especially maybe because I'm a criminal lawyer and like being innocent until proven guilty is something that's very important to me.
Earlier we mentioned how the media reacted and reported on MH370, as well as the criticism their coverage received by viewers. However, criticism wasn't just aimed at the media. Numerous governments, though mainly Malaysia, were scrutinized for how they handled the investigation. Initially, contradictory statements were made, and there was confusion about where exactly to conduct the searches. Several of the nations involved also had difficulties with sharing important information and collaborating as efficiently as they needed to for the case.
真的是让我们觉得既无助又愤怒。
Besides government scrutiny and possible multinational incompetence, the court of public opinion proved damning for the airline itself. In December of 2025, 11 years after the disaster, a court in Beijing ordered Malaysia Airlines to pay $410,000 to the families of 8 of MH370's passengers. Many other cases against the airline have gone on through the years as well, and many were eventually settled. Not only did they have to pay compensation to the victims' families, they also had to deal with brand damage.
This information is quite technical in nature, so although I will give you as much information as I can, I will not be in a position to answer questions about the data analysis today.
Their reputation was arguably forever tarnished by the MH370 tragedy. Not long after the disappearance, the MH370 flight number was retired. In its wake was its replacement, the new flight number MH318. Financial problems also found their way toward Malaysia Airlines, though they weren't all entirely because of the tragedy. Regardless, the flight was still a notable factor, and in January 2015, the company was considered technically bankrupt.
Now Malaysia Airlines faces a further drop in business and pressure on its fares as a result of the flight's disappearance.
We have a lot of work to do. Okay.
What followed next was a period of attempting to repair the airline and its business operations. The idea of rebranding was discussed, and this would later become a reality. By September 1st, 2015, Malaysia Airlines was now officially restructured into Malaysia Airlines Berhad. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Despite the last major search for MS-370 by Ocean Infinity ending in June of 2018, That end actually seems to be more of a pause. In December of 2025, Ocean Infinity restarted their search.
As far as Malaysian government is concerned, we are committed to that search, and the search must go on.
Within their arsenal are a plethora of drones and high-tech contraptions capable of traveling underwater, which are being used to search the Indian Ocean once again. The company has a contract with Malaysia valued at $70 million. That being said, Ocean Infinity theoretically doesn't get a cent of that money unless it actually does what it's hoping to and locates the plane. In short, no find, no fee.
But there's reasons to be hopeful. The robotic specialists have the latest technology, autonomous underwater vehicles that create 3D maps of the seabed up to 6 kilometres below the surface.
This renewed investigation has once again brought Flight 370 to the forefront of the conversation. Locating the 777 is a tall task, and the ambitious journey is another reminder that no corner can be left unturned. All of this in mind, it begs a few questions. Can this case really still be solved, or will it continue to remain aviation's largest mystery ever?
Why would a search be any different this time? Why would we turn something up this time?
With this very difficult terrain, it is possible to miss wreckage.
Unfortunately, uncertainty is the name of the game for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. However, what we can be certain of is that the story's not over. Even in the face of depressing headlines and unsatisfying searches, the quest for closure and the hope for truth about the tragedy remains. The plane vanished mysteriously in the night sky, but the hope families have that one day they'll get the answers they need has yet to vanish all these years later.
There are so many conspiracy theories which are going around. Whether you accept them or you don't, but nevertheless it hits your brains, it hits your heart.